You see that pale blue dot? That's us. And that is what is at stake. This is not a normal time. We are facing a planetary emergency. We're putting 70 million tons every day of global warming pollution into the Earth's atmosphere, and it's continuing to increase. Look how far above the natural cycle this is, and we've done that. But ladies and gentlemen, within less than 50 years, it'll be here. There's not a single fact or date or number that's been used to make this up that's in any controversy. If we allow that to happen, it is deeply unethical.
Senator Sanders.
We have got to cut carbon emissions rather than give a green light for the production of some of the dirtiest oil on this planet. I think, frankly, that is crazy. We can create millions of jobs in energy efficiency, wind, solar, and other sustainable energy.
The consensus is as strong as anything in science, with the possible exception of gravity.
We have got to transform our energy system. I am doing it a different way. I have 5 million individual contributors. And when millions of people stand up and tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are less significant than the long-term health of this planet, we will win. That is the way change always takes place. And with your support, people around the world are going to say, thank you.
And now we'll turn to questions from the committee. We'll begin by recognizing the gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gore, I want to start out by saying for the record that those of us on our side are pro-environment. We all want clean air and clean water. I don't think there's any question about that.
I don't question your sincerity for one moment.
Well, I appreciate that, and I wish I could return the compliment, but there are just some things that bother me about the way you've been conducting your life, some of the things you've said over the years. For instance, you've stated repeatedly that CO2 is a pollutant, and we've had scientist after scientist testify before this committee that says that CO2 is not a pollutant. Do you dispute that?
I want to address the point that you made about the science. I believe that it's important to look at the sources of the science that we rely on. With all due respect, I believe that you have relied on people you have trusted who've given you bad information.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, we've spoken with numerous scientists that contributed to the IPCC report. Matter of fact, we talked with the lead author of the IPCC, and he vehemently disagrees with you as far as what the science is showing. And for years, this body has relied on you with your testimony on global warming, and for years, this body has taken your testimony as fact.
What were you thinking?
I've been wondering the same thing. Let's get to your own life. In 2007, the Tennessee Center for Policy Research pulled your power bills at your Nashville mansion. They found that you were using more power in a month than the average Nashville home was using in a year.
It wasn't very convenient for them to do.
Well, convenient or not, they did it. And after the report, you were shamed into taking some action, and you changed a bunch of light bulbs. Now, you did put in geothermal. I have to give you credit for that. But your home still uses 10 times the power of the average Nashville home. That's not very green, Mr. Gore, is it? Now, are you embarrassed by that, or do you think that it makes you look like a hypocrite? Or
I'm proud of it.
You're proud of it?
Do you think there's something wrong with being active in business in this country?
No, sir. I don't. But I think you're missing the point. Let me ask you this: since you brought up making money, and there's been a lot of speculation out there, how much of your wealth comes directly from your fear-mongering over global warming?
I think I'll try to dance around that question.
Well, let me throw some figures out. We have heard that you made somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million off this. Does that sound about right?
Yes. No, I think you're right on target.
Well, you have multiple houses. You live the life of a king. Now, I want you to really think about this next question. If you had not been able to exploit this issue, how different do you think your life would be about right now?
Would be awful to contemplate. I have no idea.
Well, you may want to contemplate that because you were worth less than $2 million when you left office, right? And now you're worth over $100 million. So when this whole global warming thing starts to crash down, you may have to learn to live off a lot less.
I don't know how.
Well, let me assure you, and I think I speak for the rest of my colleagues here, it can be done. And that's part of the issue here that we're talking about. Part of this is about being able to relate to those who are lower down on the financial food chain. And everything that you're proposing is going to drive up costs. It's going to drive up the cost of gasoline. It's going to drive up the cost of electricity. All that in turn is going to drive up the cost of everything out there. And it seems to me that those who you're going to be hurting the most are those who are already hurting the most. And I'm talking about, of course, the poor. Would you agree with that?
I genuinely believe that. We look at the fact that poor and disadvantaged people in our country, as well as in the rest of the world, are those most likely to be victims of this. Indeed, many already have been.
Look, let's get back to your testimony. You testified that over 3,000 scientists with the IPCC spoke unanimously in their report that we are causing global warming. The Met Office says that there are only 152 scientists who worked on that report, and not all of them agreed, by the way, and there were only 9 scientists who worked on the chapter dealing with what might be causing global warming. According to how many scientists do you base this theory of yours that man is causing global warming?
I don't know how to say it. I wish I could find the words.
Well, it's not that difficult of a question. Is it 20, 30, 60? According to how many scientists do you base that theory?
According to one scientist.
No more questions, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Others might seize on SAI's benefits and back away from their commitment to carbon dioxide reductions. And as with other breakthrough technologies, global norms and standards are lacking to guide the deployment and implementation of SAI and other geoengineering initiatives. Now, I could go on and on and on and on about the things that fascinate me, but rather than talk about them, I thought I'd stop here.
And today, there's no greater threat to our planet than climate change.
ISIS renewing its call to followers to launch attacks here in the U.S.
No challenge poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change.
He was apparently beheaded by ISIS militants.
It is indeed one of the biggest threats facing our planet today.
The two suspects, brothers with assault rifles, storming that newsroom, executing editors, cartoonists.
Climate change is the threat multiplier.
In a barren desert, the mangled remains of a plane that was carrying 224 people.
If another country threatened to wipe out an American town, we'd do everything in our power to protect ourselves. Climate change poses the same threat right now.
Bodies lay in the streets after multiple coordinated terrorist attacks.
And years from now, I want to be able to look our children and grandchildren in the eye and tell them that we did everything we could to protect it. And no challenge poses a greater threat to future generations than climate change.